Welcome to the Pearls of Wisdom podcast, brought to you by Southern Jewelry News and Jewelry Store Marketers.
Hello, everyone. This is Guy with Jewelry Store Marketers, and we are here with another great episode of the Pearls of Wisdom Jewelry podcast. And I have our lovely co-host, Elisa Dillon from Southern Jewelry News. Everybody loves Elisa.
Hello, everybody.
And there we go. And our special guest today is Slav from Gems One and Alpha Lab Grown. Welcome, Slav. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I guess why don't you start off in telling us what you do for the company?
So I joined Gems One about 4.5 years ago. I think my general definition of my role is product development. However, that kind of parlays into multiple areas, from general product development to a lot of marketing duties to different type of marketing, again, across different categories. So again, it's a little bit of everything. And I work with wide type of clientele, from larger, bigger size independent jewelry chains. And I work with a lot of our sales teams, clients that are just our normal, regular, independent jewelry stores. So it's a very wide encompassing role, honestly, and I love it.
Fantastic. Why don't you give us a little background about Gems One for those that may not be as familiar? Tell us about Gems One.
So Gems One is actually quite an interesting company. They've been around now, I believe it's coming up on 50 years, in fact. So the company was started by Prem Jain, who had originally immigrated to United States to be an engineer. And it seems figured out he can probably be a lot more prosperous selling at the time color stones than being an engineer. And so eventually, I guess he shifted into a jewelry industry. They worked predominantly at the time. They were based in tri-state area around Ohio. So it was Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, which is why even till this day, this is a very, very strong area for us. This is where we have a large number of clients who have worked, frankly, with Gems One from inception. And eventually, his son, Anuj, who has gone, I believe at the time, to Columbia Business School, got master's from Columbia, and he wanted two things. He wanted to go back. His dad wanted him to go into business. He wanted to, but he didn't want to go back to Ohio. So what he ended up effectively doing is he told Dad, I'll go into business if you move to New York. And so they took the company from Ohio, moved it to New York. In 2018, honestly, one of the largest companies in the industry, which is the company called Dye-Rough. It's a huge company that manufactures rough, manufactures jewelry, works with a lot of really, really distinguished companies in our industry, but has absolutely no entryway into independent jewelers for the most part. They've actually partnered with Gems One, and this is now our sister company. And since 2018, Gems One were able to rely on their manufacturing capabilities, which are honestly, in terms of diamond cutting, jewelry manufacturing, lab growing, lab jewelry manufacturing, so on and so forth, are just incredible. And they've been our partner now since 2018. So we've kind of had a little bit of a new iteration and new additional things that we were able to bring to our clients over the past 7.5 years.
Fantastic. I know that you recently, it was published an article about written by you, Marketing Beyond Commodity, was published on the website, the Southern Jewelry Net website, earlier this month. And I think it was some very interesting information there. Did you have any questions about that article, Lisa?
Well, I was just wondering, I read the article, and, if I could just add a little bit about Gems One. I've done business with them since, beginning of their fledgling company in Ohio. And I can tell you that working or just, the family itself, the Jain family is just just a loving, giving, and wonderful family in our jewelry industry. And just a real quick heads up. We are hoping to have them on next, Gems One, so we can the book, the Seventh Diamond, which is out right now, written about Prem's journey to America, and it's written by his daughter, and it's just great. I already started it. The pictures are beautiful. It's really good. So we're going to hopefully do a future podcast on that. So this is a little bit of background on how wonderful this family is. The daughter is paying tribute in this gorgeous, this book. And again, they're just great people. Your article really did touch on a few things that I thought. And that particular, could you tell us a little bit more about how retailers that are listening in, how they can capture more of the bridal business, before they come in? I mean, what are some of the strategies of driving traffic in effective marketing? I believe you touched on that. Can you expand a little bit on that for us, Slav?
Sure. So to me, I've always found that, and since I guess I'm going to back up and kind of go to the core of Gems One business first. So most people who do know Gems One are very, very familiar with their general print marketing. At this time, I believe we're probably one of the largest printers in the industry, and we have a very, very good methodology of how to get new people into doors, right? So acquire new customers and retain existing ones. But as the more that I've learned when I've joined them and the more that I understood that part of the business, I've also realized that, we've been a business in the flux, frankly, for probably the last 13, 14 years, whether we realize it or not. Because if we back out to somewhere around the 2009, 2010, effectively, this is the time where De Beers decided that they will no longer promote diamonds as a whole for the category, and they've moved on to a more specific Forever Mark type of marketing, which I understand it was a business move on their part. I think the failure on the jewelers' part was this. Those jewelers who have taken on Forever Mark have started marketing. They continue to market natural diamonds. Those jewelers who have not effectively stopped marketing natural diamonds. They have not stopped selling them, but they stopped marketing them. In around 2014-15, you have lab-grown diamonds coming into the industry, so that created the next change. And then if you look now post-COVID, there was almost a very rapid development of both, first, a perfect storm of customers for laboratory-grown diamonds and availability of money to purchase said diamonds. And that created both high demand and kind of accelerated the price decline that we've seen. And so now now we find ourselves at a different point, and arguably a conversion point coming, at which point laboratory grown diamonds are not going to go away, but they may become a less attractive offering when we talk about specifically a bridal component of the business. And so how do you manage that? So I think the traditional Gems One methodologies, while still applied, this is where for us, we saw a little bit of a challenge. And the challenge was this. Gems One predominantly had actually been a marketing company. That's what we've delivered to the market for over a decade. And personally, for me, I find this inconsistency. And I'll start with maybe let's do a fun example here. So imagine if the three of us today decided that we wanted to go in business and we wanted to compete Coca-Cola. Okay? If we would approach that logic and we say, what are the three main components our product would have? What would we say? It has to be sweet like Coke. It has to come in large container. And ideally, we have to be cheaper than Coke. Correct?
Right.
Three major, right? Very simple, right? We're an incumbent. We've got to be cheaper. If you look at the last 15 or 20 years, the company that have entered soft drinks market and actually have been incredibly successful is Red Bull. Tastes terrible, comes in a small can, and costs 3 times as much as Coca-Cola. How does that make sense? It doesn't.
Yeah.
Because the beauty of marketing isn't logical. However, most of our operations, most of jewelers want to approach marketing very logically. That is, they want to quantify it before they actually implement it, right? And unfortunately, unlike mathematical equation, it's not practically possible, right? Conversely, when they go to a jewelry shop and they start buying jewelry, right? They buy jewelry with a lot of magic. I believe this would sell. There is no approach, right? So marketing, where you want a lot of magic, right, and very, very little logic, we do the other one way. Product merchandise, where you need a lot of logic and very little magic, we do the other. So I think if we can solve that challenge, that can enable all the jewelers to do two things: less aged inventory, more penetration in terms of consumer base, right? And really just created a general differentiation for your store in your given marketplace. And so the challenge that I saw, and this is why the article was written as Marketing Beyond Commodity, is as much as we've talked about this as an industry for the last 2, 3, 4 decades, we continue to do everything as generic as possible, right? We commoditize every product we carry at every turn.
Wow.
And so again, this is where for me was the crux of this article, and this was really the reason why some of the product that we actually even mentioned, some of the solutions that we mentioned, marketing solution, product solution that we mentioned in the article, really came about. But it all is dovetailing with existing solutions that Gems One has created, because in the end of the day, I'm a big believer in synergy. Products that work together produce better results with very, very low overheads.
So if you had an example of like a couple of strategies, effective marketing strategies that you could give to our listeners now, we'll call them pearls of wisdom. Can you expand a little bit on what strategies are used for effective marketing? 1 or 2 examples or something that our listeners, retailers can take away.
Well, the first one is I'm still going to go back to car. We still continue to see that print marketing works. It continues to work, and I know it isn't something that, pardon my French, sexy, right? I get it. It is something that's been around for a while. It's very, very, it's kind of, it's very, very old school. But the truth is the mailboxes are lighter. And what we've seen, and I've seen actually through the summer, and I don't know, by the way, if you have seen the same, the amount of postcards I've received from Blue Nile, Brilliant Earth, and James Allen in the past 90 days has been far and away the highest number I've seen in the last probably 2 or 3 years. Which is clear that they are diversifying their own efforts. I calculated, I received 5 different postcards between mid-June and end of July as we were heading into an RJO show. So what I have to, and again, this is probably a little bit of a speculation, right? But their traditional methodology, most of the big online customers, their traditional methodology for marketing is what's called programmatic marketing, which is done by an algorithm.
Right.
The only way algorithm can market is by looking back, looking at the people who are purchasing from you, and then putting them in, and then creating an ideal customer to target. When algorithm does that, they basically optimize for a very particular customer, ignoring everything else. So there's a large number of consumers that they realize they purely ignore. And that now what they're doing is they're supporting their general online marketing effort with mailing efforts. So I think one of the things I would say, diversify.
Right.
Absolutely.
And your marketing efforts have to be diversified to a degree where your digital efforts have to be supported by print efforts, because the print efforts still work. It's still the less expensive way to acquire customers. And to that, I will add you this, and this is something very, very interesting. And I'll use a specific example. I worked recently with a client of ours, and they wanted to do our mail marketing. We looked at both what we call an acquisition and retention. In terms of retention that goes to your clients, we gave them a specific retail mark, and we said any client that you've had over the last 2 years, you want this particular nicer, thicker book to go to. When they ran their numbers, they had less than 1,000 people to send it to. At which point our suggestion was, don't send this book. Here is the problem. At these higher, even though they have 3 locations, at that end of the spectrum where you want to generate that purchase that, let's say, be over $1,000 retail, you don't have enough customers. So what we need to do is we need to pull back and do it as a first step. The first step is let's first target to acquire more customers, which is a more traditional flyer type of mailer in December, right? And then once we acquire those customers, then by the time we arrive at the next Christmas, that's when you might have enough 1,500, 2,000 where it's worthwhile to proceed with that. So I think those print strategies we continue to see delivering. The other one, and it's within print strategies, and honestly, it shocked me how effective it was, and it's also shocked me how many people don't do it. And that's how many retailers ignore Black Friday. It is the second largest shopping day of the year. And more often than not, when I talk to jewelers, I hear three answers. It's a bad day for us. We're closed. Or we're basically going to target Small Business Saturday over Black Friday. And I see time and time again, some of our clients are huge stores that have not stopped doing a mailer through a newspaper for the most part, the old school way, and continue to see when they promote a gift with purchase for Black Friday, it is incredibly effective.
Oh, sure.
And they stay busy. And the biggest part over and above just being busy and making money, it actually starts getting your salespeople excited about the upcoming season. They do participate. They start to feel like, okay, we're participating. We're not just sitting on the sideline and waiting until the Black Friday is over, until Cyber Monday is over, and okay, then there's not our time. You really come in the beginning of this entire Christmas cycle, and so these we see continuously being effective. Once you get past that, the one thing that we see, that we believe, and this is where some of the concepts I've discussed in an article come in, that is really building the message of differentiation within your marketplace. Whether it is something you do with us, whether it is something you find maybe somewhere else, I don't know so many solutions in our industry that necessarily work that I'm aware of. However, and that's the reason why we've created what we have. But I think the thing we have to understand is, in 1936, Hollywood figured out one very interesting thing. Have you ever heard something called the power of 7?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any consumer needs 7 impressions, which is the term that was kind of monopolized by online marketing, but impression is an impression. A billboard is an impression, right? A radio ad is an impression. I think what has happened with our industry is the reliance on what we would say brands, and brands is a term that our industry uses quite loosely. The reliance of brands has been so predominant that we started marketing companies that were just manufactured. You know how many clients we go online and it says, as a designer, it says Gems One. Look, we want to sell you as much as we can, but we're not a designer. There's no consumer recognition, and whether you put Gems One or your own store name, frankly, your store name should probably mean more to your local customers than Gems One name. So it's really honing in on one marketing message that is consistently delivered over time, over and over again, because your customers keeps moving. The article I reference, and I encourage people who, if you have a minute, go to that link that was provided in the article from Vogue Business and read this article. It is an article that talks about how the new Generation Z and millennials completely redefine what's called a marketing funnel. And most importantly, because of the amount of information they get hit with every day, right, almost counterintuitively, what we want to do as marketers and as jewelry operations is actually slow down with our message, which means we don't need to tell them 75 things every week, different thing. We need to keep repeating one thing over and over again until it registers.
Got it.
Yep.
And that's the hard part for most jewelry stores.
So, Slav, could you, for the listeners, could you summarize the top 3, let's say, call to actions that you would suggest for jewelers? So just, how would you? What would those be?
So, in today's market, I would say this again. First and foremost, print marketing. It works, acquires customers. That has to be done. Christmas, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Black Friday, what have you. These just have to be done. The second is I would also say is, in today's market, I believe you have to start telling the story of a natural diamond. You have to start preparing for the time where you might arrive at the point where it's not that lab-grown diamonds are not selling, but frankly, they're not really what you want to sell. That story will take time. It is a product that a lot more expensive at the net and more than the lab-grown diamond, as I mentioned before, hasn't been marketed for a long time. It will take time. So you've got to start planting the seeds with a consistent messaging on that. And then relating to that is it's really looking at your entire product assortment and streamlining it to your marketing efforts.
There you go.
Right? This is where efficiency comes. This is where your overheads go down. This is your aged inventory goes down. Because if you build the right marketing message, obviously we think we know what that is, right? But if you build the right marketing message and then you get product that dovetails into that marketing message, you could never go wrong because your customer comes in pre-sold, pre-informed, right? You've already built that initial interest and desire when they arrive at the store. And when your visuals consistent with what you're marketing, and when your store sales associates speak in the same manner and talk about the same messages and the same information as your billboards and radio ads and digital marketing, this is how you achieve that efficiency. If you want to see who does that incredibly well, there's one company. And that company has more marketing dollars than absolutely anyone. And they still do it very, very effectively. And that company is Apple.
Yes.
Right? Always about Apple, then the product, which is one of the four, right? Laptop, phone, headphones, what have you. And then within each, you have three options: good, better, best, regular, pro max.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, definitely. For myself, I've seen Gems One, and I've known about Gems One for a long time. I have a personal story about Anuj, which I'm going to tell if Anuj comes on, Anuj and Prem, and no, they come on. I love this story. I tell it to many, and I'd love to tell it with Anuj on the podcast. But the company is an amazing company. You guys are doing a great job helping jewelers attract and get more clients and keep it moving, keep it going. And anyone that hasn't seen doesn't know much about Gems One, make sure you pay attention to Gems One, but read Slav's article in Southern Jewelry News. It's a really informative, lots of information. Like Slav said, there's a link, and really, really cool stuff. I mean, Gems One's a great company that you should really pay attention to. And I guess talk to Slav, right? Talk to you if somebody wants to get started or wants more information.
Absolutely. There's no commitments. So if there's somebody who wants to expand a lot of this, there's a lot of stuff to unpack, as you guys know, especially when it comes to marketing and stuff. We would be happy to talk to anybody to talk about what we see, how we see it going, and then it'd be great. So you guys can reach out to me. I can give the contact information, and feel free.
Well, fantastic. Well, this has been very informative. Do you have any other questions, Elisa?
I did. I wanted to ask him because, Gems One is always on the pulse of what's new and what's next. I mean, you can totally, if you're viewing their print ads in Southern or Mid-America Jewelry News, and I love what you said about print too, Slav. I mean, any of my customers who are picking up the newspaper, it's tangible. You can't click it off. It sits at the store. My magazine, the Wine Spectator, I keep it around all the time. So I just wanted to reiterate, thank you for telling how important print is. I think people are, so sometimes super focused just on digital. And I do appreciate that, that print is still valuable, and it's something that retailers should do. I love getting the flyers in the mail personally, around the holidays. And obviously, there's a lot of good companies that do it. Gems One has always been a catalog company. Tell me what kind of expectations we can see in the future, or anything that you would like to expand on a little bit more about what we can see from Gems One in the future.
So one of the things that we've worked on and we will continue to sort of perfect has been two areas. One of the areas is as the print starts helping you acquire this first time pre-bridal customer, which is what the target for the print is. What on our side we realized is while we helped acquire that customer, we haven't had too many tools to help you close that customer. So that's where a lot of our new concept, what we call perfect love concept, comes in. And it's an incredibly efficient thing. It's from a diamond to a engagement ring to fashion to custom. It has unique selling proposition, has all the things that I think would help you develop your business. Because what we see on one hand is the type of merchandise that consumers are buying are very, very homogeneous. It's not so many styles. It's not so many different variations. It's the key 30, 40, 50 bridals that continue to sell all the time. There is a very specific aesthetic in fashion that's working right now, predominantly heavy gold, and now we're seeing two-tone coming in a little bit more with a little bit more bolder looks. So that's there. A little bit more chunkier silver as well, coming in that part. So we're still following trends. We're still trying to bring this to our customers, again, within that very efficient marketing merchandising funnel that doesn't require you to go so crazy with investment. We continue to improve our quality. That's one of the things that I think we're very, very proud of what we've executed with our bridal, with our fashion, with our custom, has been absolutely hailed by the clients who have worked with us, for new clients that came on board. So we're very proud with that, and we'll continue to improve that. In the diamond component, we're looking at basics, and we're going to take a better advantage of our partnership with our sister company, which is, again, one of the largest site holders, and we're going to try to bring tremendous value through basics, bands, studs, bracelets in the natural diamonds to the natural diamond component to try and help develop that. We're also with all our looks, and it goes back to our catalogs, are trying to stay consistent ourselves. So holiday to holiday to holiday, you'll find some certain part of our catalogs are now starting to maintain similar look to help you build brand value and brand recognition in your marketplace, even through print media. So we want to be a bigger partner for all our retailers, but a bigger, efficient partner.
Like it. Well, there you have it, folks. I mean, if you're not partnering up with Gems One, take a look, read Slav's latest article on the website. Also, I want to mention jewelry store marketing. I mean, you're talking guys' language over here. Me too, as marketing and advertising, what I would call experts in our field. I think you've given some great pearls of wisdom today, Slav, and we certainly appreciate it. Be sure you check out our website, southernjewelrynews.com, and Jewelry Store Marketing's website for any of your marketing needs. It looks like, we've got an A-team here. You got Slavs with Gems One. They know what they're doing. And of course, a guy is always there to help you with your marketing, SEOs. Does a great job. So I just wanted to give that little shout out.
Thank you. Well, anyway, this has been fantastic. Slav, thank you so much for all the, pearls of wisdom.
Yes.
And we certainly appreciate all the help that Gems One does for its retailers and keeping, and keeping them in business, getting them more customers. That's awesome. So, we look forward to running into you somewhere and a trade show or somewhere. But make sure you go, if you're at a trade show, look for Gems One, look for Slav, look for the Gems One family, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Pearls of Wisdom Jewelry Podcast. Thanks, Slav. Thanks, Elisa. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks for listening to the Pearls of Wisdom Jewelry Podcast. For more information about the show, please visit southernjewelrynews.com/podcast, brought to you by Southern Jewelry News and Jewelry Store Marketers. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you can catch the next show. See you then.